Today's case takes you on a wild ride all throughout New Jersey and Philadelphia. While it does eventually end in murder, the mystery behind it all is, what was the motive? What was the cause of death, and who was the murderer? This case deals with a toxic relationship where a woman who tried to break free from her abuser was later found dead. Many people were aware and involved in this relationship, but somehow, over a decade later, many are left still wondering what really happened and why. Hi guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Zara, and on this channel, we talk about true crime. So if you're interested, please join the fam, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too, guys. It really helps out the channel. And also share this video if you like. Nadia Malik was the second child of 6 siblings and grew up in Marble Township in Pennsylvania. Nadia was described as a beautiful, kind, and shy person. Growing up, Nadia spent most of her time with her mom, but she was also very close to her sister Mona. Nadia went to Marple Newtown High School, where she was a straight A student, did well in all of her classes, was extremely book smart, and had many friends. Nadia wanted to pursue a career in medicine after she finished school. It was around this time in 2008, when she was around 15, 16 years old, that she met someone who would change her life forever. His name was Bhupinder Singh. He was 19 years old and worked as a waiter. According to her father, Nadia and Bhupinder met in junior high, and he actually spoke to Bhupinder and told him not to pursue a relationship with his daughter. He just didn't think that they were the right fit, but in reality, her parents were just not a fan of Bhupinder and didn't want him anywhere near their young daughter. But despite the request, Bhupinder wanted Nadia, so he pursued her, and they began dating. From the very beginning, the relationship was just very volatile. Just like her parents thought, they were just not a good fit. Soon after their relationship began, it was obvious the effect it was having on Nadia. Her grades began to slip. The once straight A student was no longer doing well in school. And you know, this is young love, and I can really relate because Jay and I began dating in high school. And yeah, your focus becomes the relationship. You're so young, and now looking back, were we too young to date? In reality, yeah, to have a real relationship like we did, yeah, it's too young. You become all consumed with this one person, what they're doing, how they feel about you, what your future is going to look like. It's all you want to do, all you want to think about is that person. I remember Jay and I would see each other after school, and then we would secretly call each other at like 10 p.m. and talk until midnight every night. What the hell did we talk about? I have no idea. And at that age, you should really be having fun with your friends, learning who you are as a person and what you want out of life. Now, the difference was Jay and I waited until our early mid-20s to get married, and we were together for over a decade. So we had time to figure ourselves out. But again, realistically, we grew up together. So there definitely is that sort of dependency that builds on each other. But in Nadia's case, everything was just accelerated because somehow, some way, despite being the daughter of Indian parents, in 2011, Nadia and Bhupinder moved in together when she was just 19 years old. Now, I'm saying that because how? There is no chance in hell, and I know a lot of other Indian parents who feel the same way, that my parents were ever letting me move out of the house, A, without being married, and then B, being that young. 0% chance. But Nadia's family begged her to not move in with him. They begged her to just stay away from Bhupinder. Now, prior to this, when she was around 18 years old, Nadia kept a huge secret from her family. And I believe that it was because of this secret that Nadia was able to move in with Bhupinder. During freshman year at college, Nadia found herself pregnant. But she didn't tell anyone except Bhupinder. Together, they agreed to keep the pregnancy a secret until the baby was finally born. I'm sure this came as a huge shock to her family, and realistically, I'm sure they were even a little disappointed because, you know, even though a child always brings so much joy to families, in reality, the fact that their daughter had a child with someone they did not approve of and at such a young age probably didn't sit well with the family. However, despite this, when Nadia and Bhupinder wanted to give up custody off their son and hand it over to Nadia's parents, they agreed. They took in that baby boy and raised him as their own. It's hard though, right? Because sometimes telling a kid not to do something only makes them want to do it even more. Personally, I was not like that. Like the whole forbidden fruit concept does not really entice me, but it does to a lot of people. Perhaps that's what went on here. Bhupinder was this forbidden bad boy fruit. Nadia wanted him despite what her family thought. But Bhupinder definitely also played a role, and we will get into that later. Nadia began growing distant from her family. She rarely spoke to them, and her life was just all about Bhupinder. This again was a disappointment to Nadia's parents because they wanted her to attend the University of Pennsylvania after high school and pursue her interests in medicine. However, partly due to her grade slipping, Nadia took college classes and then applied to Temple University, but never actually enrolled. And then I believe she finally did enroll into a course at the University of Sciences. Nadia and Bhupinder lived together in Marble Township, Pennsylvania, and although they never married, they went on to have 3 children together, a son and 2 daughters. Each time Nadia got pregnant, she kept the pregnancy a secret until the baby was born. Her sister Mona believes that the reason for this secrecy was due to what was happening behind closed doors. Her parents had warned her, begged her not to be with Bhupinder, and as their relationship progressed, Bhupinder's true colors began showing. Nadia might have been embarrassed to celebrate her pregnancies, what normally would be a joyous occasion, because of who she was having the babies with. However, Nadia loved her children and was a devoted, loving mother, and I believe she eventually did have custody of her first son and raise him, but I'm not quite sure on that.
Say hi.
Hi.
What are you doing?
Okay.
Cry like a baby.
Okay.
Cry like a baby.
In February 2012, the worst thing that could happen to a parent happened. On February 28th, 2012, Nadia and Bhupinder were sitting inside their parked car near a restaurant in Springfield, Pennsylvania. Nadia was allegedly on her phone to Verizon when she turned around and realized their 3-month-old daughter, Alina, was not breathing. Nadia immediately phoned 911 for help, and as she did, Bhupinder took off running. When the medics arrived, Nadia was sitting in the car beside Alina, frantic and in a frenzy, crying. However, sadly, 3-month-old Alina was pronounced dead. Weirdly, the medics saw that the baby was in rigor mortis, which only happens hours after death. So this whole case of Alina's death was confusing. How did Nadia only noticed the baby wasn't breathing now when it was clear to the medics that she had passed away hours ago? Also, why did her father take off? Alina's body was sent in for an autopsy, but formal investigations into her death stayed open and pending for 2 years up until 2014. It was later determined that baby Alina died due to cachexia, which is a chronic illness that can be best described as just wasting away. People with this condition lose weight, lose muscle mass, they lose body tissue, usually due to an underlying illness. But my question is, what was the underlying illness? The results of the autopsy were really hard to find, and many felt that the death of their baby was very sus. Baby Alina's cause of death was undetermined. Again, weirdly enough, Bhupinder was never questioned and no charges were filed in Alina's death. Nadia's family was devastated, but you know what made it even worse? They had only found out about Alina's existence when they learned that she died. They didn't even know Nadia was pregnant or had another baby girl, and the situation was horrible enough to cause more strife in the relationship between Nadia and Bhupinder. Nadia and Bhupinder had now been in a 7-year-long, highly toxic relationship which produced 3 children, which only 2 remained alive at this point. Their relationship was only growing worse due to Bhupinder remaining unemployed and high on Percocet most of the time. Nadia was the one who had the job. She worked as a pharmacist at a drugstore, but later in 2014 was fired due to excessive absences. According to her brother Khalid, this was nothing like Nadia. She would have never let anything apart from her kids take priority to her job. That Bhupinder was to blame for the changes in her. Bhupinder was extremely controlling, would threaten Nadia if he didn't get his way, kept her distanced from her friends and family so that he could manipulate and control her entirely. There were many times where Bhupinder made Nadia and her family fear for her life. Her family was aware that Bhupinder had broken a few of Nadia's ribs and that he was frequently violent towards her. But Nadia always protected him to a certain degree. She didn't want authorities involved because she didn't want to deal with the drama that came along with it. Nadia confided in her family at one point that she believed Bhupinder was slowly poisoning her food, but her family wasn't sure if this was really happening or Nadia was paranoid due to the extensive physical abuse she was enduring that may have been finally taking a toll on her. I mean, either way, something should have been done, right? Even if it wasn't true, all the other abuse she was facing was enough for police to intervene. There must have been enough evidence. But again, what do you do in a situation like this if the victim refuses help? In December 2013, after Nadia sustained those broken ribs, she went to a hospital to be treated and then went to live at her parents' house, vowing to end things with Bhupinder once and for all. However, it seemed that Bhupinder had this hold on her, control of her, manipulating her into believing things would be harder without him. Even though realistically, what was he really doing for her? Like, he wasn't looking after the children. He wasn't bringing in a source of income. She was basically doing everything by herself. So what would be harder without him? Her sister Mona said that every time Nadia tried to leave the relationship, he got to her. And that's the reason why she stayed with him. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, but maybe every time she tried to leave, he would just convince her that it would be worse without him. He would threaten her. He would just say the things that got her to stay with him in the first place. It was after this time that Nadia believed Bhupinder was poisoning her with the medication she was prescribed for pain relief for the broken ribs, right? So she believed he was crushing up these pain relief pills and putting them into her food. In mid-January 2014, Nadia spoke to her brother Khaled and told him that she was ready to leave Bhupinder for good. And she went back to her parents' house. Now, we have learned from past cases that if you want to leave an abusive relationship, you never tell the abuser you are leaving. You just go. But the fact that Nadia was already living with her parents, it's clear that Bhupinder already picked up wind that maybe this time she was serious. Nadia deciding to finally leave Bhupinder could also have something to do with a new relationship she was forming. Thomas Singh was a mutual friend of Nadia and Bhupinder's. Thomas was a former army veteran who at the time was studying to become an engineer, and he was very different to his close friend Bhupinder, who was an unemployed druggie compared to Thomas, who was fit, educated, and noble. Thomas had spent time with Nadia and Bhupinder together, and only once he realized how Bhupinder was treating Nadia, began focusing his attention on Nadia and getting closer with her. He saw Bhupinder slap Nadia straight in the face with no remorse right in front of him. If he was comfortable doing this casually in front of his friend, what was Bhupinder doing to Nadia behind closed doors? Thomas and Nadia grew close after this, a very close friendship, you could say, but Khaled, Nadia's brother, believed that their relationship was much more than a friendship. During this time, towards the end of January 2014, Bhupinder began proposing marriage to Nadia, trying to suck her back in. They had been together for 7 years, had 3 children. It only seemed like the sensible thing to do now to Bhupinder. Nadia had also confided in her brother Khaled that Bhupinder made these proposals multiple times. Bhupinder probably believed that if he married Nadia, she was his for keeps, that it would be much harder for her to leave him if they were married. Bhupinder also found out about Nadia and Thomas's close relationship and sent multiple texts to Thomas to stay away from Nadia. He threatened that if he didn't, he would never see Nadia again. On February 6th, 2014, 22-year-old Nadia was living at her parents' home when she received a call from Bhupinder. He wanted to talk. So on this cold, snowy day, he arrived at her parents' home in his black 2007 Nissan Altima sedan. Now, this car was initially purchased by Bhupinder's dad for Nadia and Bhupinder to use, again, because Bhupinder didn't have a job and sat on his ass all day. So that's why it's important to note that he wasn't the one who bought or was paying for the car. So Bhupinder arrives out the front of the home and Nadia gets into the car with him. Now, you're probably wondering why she even got in the car. It was clear she wanted to end the relationship by the conversation she was having with people around her. And in her defense, she probably thought that they just really needed to talk. She had not been happy in recent months, and despite their 7-year history, she knew the toxic dependency they had on each other just had to stop. Nadia knew what this conversation was about. It was clear that this might have been the conversation to end it all. What she didn't know was that this car ride that would take just a few minutes to get this conversation out, would turn into a ride that never ends. When Nadia left her parents' home that day, her parents didn't think much of it. When a couple days passed and they still hadn't heard from Nadia, again, they weren't concerned because Nadia did this often. She would just go off with Bhupinder and it just wasn't a surprise to them. I'm not exactly sure who was looking after the two kids at this point, but I'm guessing since Nadia moved back in with her parents, her kids would have too. So they would have been with her parents during this time. But weirdly enough, a mom that just left her kids for over 48 hours without a word didn't raise red flags. Her family didn't think, well, she just left her kids with us and we have to do everything for the kids now. But we don't know the family's dynamics and what they were like. But someone did notice Nadia's silence. Thomas. When Thomas hadn't heard from Nadia after a couple days, he grew concerned. Something was off. He was aware Nadia had gone for a ride with Bhupinder, but he knew Bhupinder wasn't the type of guy to be okay with her leaving him. So he finally called Nadia and she picked up the phone. Nadia told Thomas that Bhupinder had been driving her around in the car for the last 48 hours. They were driving around Pennsylvania and New Jersey, taking breaks and stops for food at rest stops and gas stations. But the problem was, Bhupinder would not let Nadia return home. He had essentially abducted her. Now, there were a lot of comments online about the fact that Nadia did not ask for help while at these rest stops or while at the gas stations, but I don't think it was as simple as that. He was her boyfriend, her partner of 7 years, father of her kids. He was probably just harassing her, something she was used to, making her feel guilty, being manipulative. And that's what she might have meant by not letting her leave. He probably just was not taking her back home. And she was like, come on, just take me back home. And he just kept saying, no, we just need to talk. And she was probably used to that kind of behavior. Could she have screamed for help during one of their stops? Yes. But the way Nadia was, she didn't feel the need to, as Bhupinder kept promising her that he would drop her off at her parents or even at Thomas's apartment once they were done. So she might have felt some sense of control of the situation while at the same time feeling out of control. Thomas told Nadia, I'm going to call the police, but she refused. She didn't want her family, let alone the police, to be involved. She just wanted the drive to end. At first, Thomas listened to Nadia and hoped the situation would just resolve itself, but after a while, when it didn't, he decided to contact Nadia's family and let them know what was happening to her. But when he did, her dad actually thought the entire phone call was a joke. Given that he didn't even know who Thomas was, he just thought it was Bhupinder playing a prank on him. On February 8th, 2014, Thomas spoke with Nadia on the phone once again, and this time he recorded the phone call. The recording of the call was provided by Nadias Family to Crime Junkies podcast. So if I can insert a clip of it here, I will, and I'll give credit to her in the description box below. And if not, you guys can find it at the link below. I'm not sure where Bhupinder was during the times that Nadia was able to speak to Thomas on the phone, though. It might have been during one of those rest stops.
You home?
He said he's going to take me home tomorrow. I have no idea.
He's not going to take you home, Nadia.
I know, that's what he said.
He's been saying that for how many days now? You want to go home, right?
Yeah, but didn't I tell you to tell my dad? Did you tell my dad?
I did tell your dad.
What did he say?
He's not responding to me. He thinks I'm good then.
You're like, please pick up. It's not that.
Doesn't hear what we're saying right now?
No.
Okay, I'm actually leaving him a voicemail right now. Say what you want to say to him.
Say to who?
Say to your dad.
For what?
You want to go home, right?
Yeah.
You want to go home tonight?
Yeah.
You need help?
Yeah.
Govern's forcing you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Don't worry, we'll take care of this. Bye.
But wait.
What?
I don't want any drama or trouble or any police involved in this.
Don't worry, we'll take care of it.
Promise, swear.
I promise.
I don't want any police involved in this, Russ. I'm just gonna go, move.
No, just promise. Trust me. I'll talk to you later.
What are
Bye.
you doing?
Don't worry, bye.
Then Nadia's brother Fawad got involved. During a phone call with Nadia on the morning of February 9th, 2014, Nadia was heard screaming for help after telling her brother that Bhupinder wasn't letting her go before the line went dead. Fawad tried calling Nadia back a few times and she answered once, but he couldn't actually make out what she was saying. It sounded like they were in like a struggle for the phone. That was the last time Thomas or Fawad heard Nadia's voice. Fawad then called Bhupinder's probation officer and told him that Bhupinder was holding his sister Nadia against her will. Then the text messages started. Bhupinder texted Fawad from Nadia's phone, telling him he would drop Nadia off at her parents' and all would be okay. Now, he wasn't pretending to be Nadia. Everyone knew it was Bhupinder, and he was just using Nadia's phone to send the text messages. He would say that he was going to drop her off by 11 a.m. And then when 11 a.m. passed and there was no sign of Nadia, he would then text, actually, Nadia dropped me off at my place and she's on the way to her parents' house now driving my car. Now, that didn't make any sense because the car was not Nadia's car. Plus, Bhupinder was still texting everyone from Nadia's phone, claiming that Nadia was on her way there. So Nadia drove off in his car without her phone. When Nadia didn't arrive at her parents' house a while later, the story changed again. Now he says that no, Nadia's still with him, but has just driven away and left him at his place. It was clearly just all lies, and Fawad did not believe a word of it. Thomas then goes to Bhupinder's place, hoping to find the two of them there. However, Bhupinder just does not answer the door. Enough was enough. Thomas then reported Nadia missing to the Lansdowne, Pennsylvania Police Department. So police go and do a welfare check, and when they actually arrived at Bhupinder's home, the home was empty. Bhupinder was lying the entire time. Everything he said was a lie. Despite this, the police didn't actually go looking for Nadia. This was a domestic dispute. They had a history of domestic issues, so it's probably just going to be the same shit, different day, right? According to the police. The conversations between Bhupinder, Thomas, and Fawad continue, with different versions of times Nadia would be dropped off home, where they were, etc. It was all just changing constantly, essentially sending them on this wild goose chase while buying time for himself. Remember, at this point, the last time anyone heard Nadia's voice was earlier that morning. Over 70 pages of text messages were sent throughout this ordeal, with Bhupinder trying to prove Nadia was still alive and well. Together with his different excuses, oh, I'm about to drop her off. I promise, I'm nearly there. Bhupinder now begins asking for money. He sent a text from his phone saying, "She is safe and happy. Stop making me look like a criminal. I would never harm her." He then constantly asked Nadia's family and Thomas for money in exchange for Nadia's return. Thomas agreed and offered to pay Bhupinder's entire rent that month to talk to Nadia. He then asked Thomas for a $100 CVS gift card to talk to Nadia. It's just so strange that he now wanted money. He even says that they've run out of money with nothing to eat, so if they didn't want Nadia to starve, they'd transfer money over via a cash app called MoneyPack. It's just so strange that he wanted money now. It's so random, right? He even says that they've run out of money with nothing to eat, so if they didn't want Nadia to starve, they'd transfer money over via a cash app called MoneyPack. Bhupinder sent a text saying, "Look, I will give her again. I will give you her location, just give me the number," referring to the MoneyPack ID transfer number, I guess. But at this point, no one knew if Nadia was even alive. They hadn't heard from her or even seen a picture or a voice note of her. At this point, the family got the police to begin searching for Nadia. Thankfully, CCTV footage showed Nadia driving the black Nissan Altima at a traffic light in the 6400 block of Market Street in Upper Darby between noon and 1 p.m. on Sunday, February 9th. It was now Sunday night. So that's good, right? She was seen alive just a few hours ago. But now the text message exchange was turning into threats. Bhupinder would send text to Thomas saying, "Send me the money pack number right now and I promise you she'll call. You have no other choice." Can you imagine what Thomas is feeling? He can't negotiate with his threats. He risks something happening to Nadia, but this is if Nadia is even all right. He is beginning to feel that Nadia wasn't even with him and didn't want to just give Bhupinder what he wanted in case he was just buying time. Bhupinder then sends Thomas a text before 9 a.m. on 10th February. And please keep in mind, Bhupinder's texts are very jumbled and have spelling errors and punctuation errors, which I think is because he's actually very frazzled. But he says, "You have 10 minutes left and I don't see any text from you. I do have a pic to send to you to prove everything is good and she will call as soon as I get that money pack. But I don't even think you're even working on getting the money pack. Exactly at 9, I will break this phone and trust me, there is no way to find us." Then that 10-minute warning threat was just that, a threat. Because he just kept texting Thomas, even after Thomas responded saying he doesn't believe him that Nadia is even with him anymore. Then suddenly, Nadia sends a text in all capital letters from the same phone saying, "It's Nadia now, can you just give him the number and then I can call, please?" When Thomas refuses that text message, Bhupinder then gets agitated and says, "Okay, I guess we're all just going to sit there then, right? I'm the biggest bitch you have ever seen. I will sit here starving and guess what? Nadia's going to starve too. So then that's on you and your mistakes." Then Thomas responded to that text message saying, "If you love her, you would never let her starve." I believe that was the final text sent on 10th February. So at this point, the police had searched Bhupinder's place on February 9th, and even though they weren't out searching for Nadia during that time, they did transfer the case over to Marple Township Police, and the search for Bhupinder began. But they were looking for him based on a violation of his parole because he traveled out of state and failed to report to his probation officer. And I believe it was his brother Khalid that actually made the call to that probation officer. It's now Wednesday, February 12th, 2014. Nadia has been missing for a week. Police were on the hunt for Bhupinder and they finally tracked him down at his parents' house in Ohio, 8 hours away. Thomas actually helped the police track him down through the text message exchanges and just his gut instinct, really. With the information that Bhupinder was using Nadia's phone, they tracked down her phone and it pinged right in Ohio. So Ohio police showed up to his parents' apartment and some covered the front door and then some went to the back of the building and covered the back door, just like you see in the movies. So just as the police go and knock on the front door of the home, the back door swings open and there's Bhupinder, looking like a pig who swallowed an apple. Bhupinder is then questioned and he tells police he took a Greyhound bus from New York after getting into a fight with his girlfriend Nadia about their relationship. He actually took multiple buses and he went all over the place, but people are assuming that that's because he couldn't afford the actual bus fare to go directly to Ohio and he had to kind of like make all these stops. He said, "I have no idea where Nadia is, but he was found with Nadia's driver's license, her phone, and the Nissan Altima car keys, but no Nadia." He also had scratches on his face and a black eye. He tells police the last time he saw Nadia, she was back in Philadelphia in the car. Now, okay, so Nadia would have been driving the car then, right? We did see her on CCTV driving at one point, so okay, maybe this was true. But the problem was that car only had the one set of car keys, which Bhupinder had in his little hands. So how did Nadia drive that car? And why would you leave her alone to drive a car with no car keys, no driver's license, and no phone? Bhupinder had no real explanations for this. He simply said he needed a phone because he didn't have one, assuming actually he didn't have the money to pay for his phone bill. So maybe His service was cut off. The car keys, why did he have them? No explanation. Okay, well, why did he run out the back door when the police knocked on the front door? You know, he had nothing to hide. He didn't do anything, right? He says, oh, he just went out the back to check who was at the front. Yeah, makes sense. Yep, it does. Makes sense. Bhupinder was found guilty of violating his probation and jailed for 1 month. But where was Nadia and the car? During his interrogation, Bhupinder admitted that the last time he saw Nadia was on February 11th, 2014, but insists he left her in his father's car and took a bus home to his parents. At this point, Bhupinder's parents reported the Nissan Altima as a missing vehicle. His brother Gurjot later said that Nadia and Bhupinder had, a really nice relationship and he really loved her. When Nadia left him, Bhupinder didn't know what to do and came to see his mom and dad. When they couldn't find Nadia and Bhupinder, went blank, they filed the car as missing in order to find Nadia. On Thursday, February 13th, 2014, Philadelphia gets hit with the biggest blizzard they had seen yet. And then a week later, on Thursday, 20th February 2014, the car was finally found in downtown Philadelphia. A man sitting in a bar recognized the car parked a block away, and that's why he reported it. It was covered in snow and it had at least 8 parking tickets on it, the earliest being February 10th. The car was abandoned for 10 days with no one reporting it earlier. Sadly, Nadia was found inside the car, slumped in the passenger seat, which was reclined, and her lower half was in the well of the car, and her upper body was lying on the passenger seat like she had been sleeping. Her head was covered by a Nike duffel bag with Bhupinder's clothes all over her body. The car was originally in a different location and had been towed to 30th Street Station as part of a snow removal plan, but the operators had not seen Nadia due to heavy snow covering the windows. Because of the cold, Nadia's body had been well preserved, so a time of death was hard to determine. Fingerprints and other evidence, including 6 prescription pill bottles, all in Bhupinder's name, receipts and bills, were taken in for testing. There was also a marriage license, but with only one signature, Bhupinder's. Surprisingly, there was no CCTV footage able to assist in determining the car's previous locations. Unfortunately, during Nadia's autopsy, the coroner was unable to determine a cause of death. 7 months later, autopsy tests still came back inconclusive. There were no major cuts or bruises. Her brain scans were clear, no signs of SA. There was no natural cause of death signs. It was just a mystery. The ME's office said it couldn't find any toxicological or anatomical cause for her death. There was no alcohol, no drugs, nothing. But they found that Nadia's ribs hadn't healed yet and that she had a puncture wound on her right hand. They couldn't figure out where that puncture wound came from. Eerily, both Nadia and her 3-month-old daughter Alina died in a car in Pennsylvania with no cause of death. Were they linked? What was the puncture mark on her hand from? A needle? Bhupinder was smart to say very little from the start and hired a lawyer immediately who never commented. Nadia's family, as you can imagine, were devastated. They faced tragedy after tragedy. Her brother Khaled believes that after Nadia finally decided to leave Bhupinder, he freaked out and didn't know what to do. The fact that he wanted to talk with a marriage certificate in hand lets you know what his proposal was. He wanted Nadia to stop the nonsense and just marry him once and for all, After all, he knew best. When she refused, when Bhupinder thought about his friend Thomas and his girlfriend getting close, their potential relationship, what went through his head? It's been said many times the most dangerous time for victims of domestic violence is the time when they finally decide to leave. Khaled is especially angry over the time it took the police to find the car once it was reported missing. Police have stated that the car's, windows were heavily tinted and it was covered in snow. It would have been impossible to know that Nadia was inside that car. But Khaled said that the windows were tinted only by 35%. Also, why wasn't the car found for over 10 days? It was even moved by Snow Patrol. Shouldn't they have been alerted that the car was wanted, that it was missing? Khaled had also spoken to a woman who said she called the Philadelphia police about that same abandoned car 7 times over 2 days, and no one ever came. At 10:26 a.m. on February 10th, Bhupinder sent Thomas a text saying, "You are going to regret this. She is alone without resources." But Khaled believes that Nadia was already dead by February 9th, that Bhupinder needed money to get out of the area. That's why he was, constantly harassing for the money pack ID and to send money, $100 CVS gift card, but that someone finally gave him money and he was able to leave Nadia alone and flee to his parents' house by the Greyhound bus. Khaled goes on to say that Nadia was a quiet, smart, kind woman until she met Bhupinder. Everything changed after that. Nadia's family, including her sister Mona, feel that the text message exchange between Bhupinder and her family and Thomas was just an act put on by Bhupinder to buy himself more time after killing Nadia, that his plan was actually to leave the country before he was caught. They will not rest until justice is served for Nadia, who left behind 2 small children. Marple Township police say there wasn't enough evidence to charge Bhupinder for Nadia's murder if it was murder. They don't believe anyone has made any errors in the investigation. They say it's a difficult case and the Emmy ran multiple tests and spent a lot of money trying to solve the mystery of her death. But till date, there is still no answer. Bhupinder is now free and living in Abu Dhabi. He is still a potential suspect in Nadia's death, but no charges have been filed. The Malik family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Bhupinder in 2016, alleging he was responsible for Nadia's death because he intentionally harmed her and left her dead or near dead in the car, abandoning her without any identification, without a phone or keys for the car that she was in. They won $10 million in a civil judgment in 2018, but what does that really mean? It's more so a win in principle because they will never see that money. Bhupinder doesn't have a dime. However, Nadia's family continues to fight despite the toll it's taking on them. The family is relentless and it shows the love they have for Nadia. Nadia's parents won custody of her 2 children, who by now would be 15 and 11, I believe. This helped the family in some way because they can see Nadia in those 2 kids. A lot of people believe that only one person knows what happened and he ain't talking. Keeping this case in the spotlight is so important because it might jog someone's memory who had seen or heard something relevant around that time. You guys can check out the Justice for Nadia Malik page on Facebook and I'll leave a link to it below. I mean, there are many theories as to what happened. I feel like, why is the Emmy ignoring the puncture mark on her hand? I mean, they're not ignoring it, but why isn't there more information about that? It could be as simple as an everyday injury, but what if it's an injection mark? Some people say it could have been air injected into her veins, another drug that becomes hard to detect after it's metabolized. What happened to baby Alina? Did she have a puncture mark too? Is that why Bhupinder ran after she was found dead in the back seat? Some are saying, what if he locked Nadia in the car and she died of hypothermia, hence the duffel bag covering her and the clothes strewn? But I feel like people can become pretty resourceful in times of distress. And if this was the case, Nadia would have either put on the extra clothes or found something to smash a window with, beep the horn for help. I think she was already dead or dying when Bhupinder left her in that car. Also, if the police were able to open the door, that would mean that the car was left unlocked, right? But there wasn't specific information on that. We don't know if they actually smashed a window to get in. This is just such a mystery and such a sad life for a woman who had a lot to live for, who would have had a good life. It goes to show how important it is to choose the right people who we let into our lives. Nadia's life would have gone down a completely different path if she never met or stayed with Bhupinder. But Bhupinder now gets to move on and live life, no responsibility for his kids too, and just gets away without giving any further information, without being held accountable. If he didn't kill her, why not say something? Wouldn't he be devastated that she died? There are just so many questions, and it's just one of the most baffling cases I've ever come across. What do you guys think? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Also, share this video, or actually share Nadia's Facebook page, because it could take one person seeing it to remember something helpful. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in next week's video. Besitos. Bye.